Everybody, welcome. I'm Jack Langworthy, co-host of Silver Creek Insights. I'm really happy to be here and see my old friend Daniel Yu joining us today on the podcast. Daniel is the founder of Wasoko, and he's sort of in a league of his own when it comes to building companies in East Africa or across Africa. Wasoko has done incredible work getting more products and food to people in the most food insecure regions of the world more efficiently, using the free market, using technology, not through World Food Program donations and all the sort of things that are fundraising and $20 a month will save a kid from starving to death. This is a product that helps entrepreneurs in villages get their flour, get their oil, get the things that they need for their life more efficiently. That's more money in the pockets of entrepreneurs. I am so proud to have you on the podcast, man. Way to go. Just I'll quit with the flattering here, but you've got to be feeling pretty good right now. Wasoko's in the news. I'd love to touch in with you. What's 2024 feeling like?
Thanks, Matt. No, I'm feeling great. Super excited about the year ahead. We've got a lot of work ahead of us, but never felt more, you know, just optimistic about the ability to really transform retail across Africa, help increase access for these essential goods, and fundamentally help communities across the continent get more for less.
Cool, of course. So I want to talk about your journey a little bit, but let's start with the beginning. You dropped out of college. What's wrong with you?
That is correct. I did take a leave of absence more than 10 years on now. So it's been a long one from the University of Chicago, where I had been on a interesting triple major path, studying economics, computer science, and Arabic, of all things. Interestingly, I do feel that it all kind of came together for me. Funny enough, I actually did a study abroad program in Egypt to specifically learn Arabic. And that's actually where I got the initial inspiration to start Wasoko, the company that became Wasoko. And then even now, with our most recent news, merging with e-commerce company MaxApp based out of Egypt, it's really come full circle. So it's been quite a journey.
That's wild how life works. This somewhat obscure seeming for a kid from California and Chicago studying Arabic. Now you're negotiating, I don't know, maybe $1 billion merger in Arabic a bit. It comes in handy. You know how to drop nice words.
Yeah, it's a bit rusty, but it's definitely helpful. And I mean, what I would say is obviously just having that cross-cultural experience, and I would say even throughout the time that we've been building up Wasoko in East Africa, obviously just being comfortable, being kind of confident going into and across different cultural situations and contexts, and being able to translate, in some cases literally, in others, more socially, how to actually kind of build cohesive teams, and establish a business with a single aim, a single mission across all of these disparate geographies. That's something that is coming in handy today more than ever.
Yeah, you must be doing something really right when it comes to the team building. You're in Cote d'Ivoire, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, I think 7 countries or so, right? And they're distinct countries. How do you set up sort of the shared vision and work across those cultures high level? How's that operate?
I would say it starts with having that shared purpose for the company itself. And for us, it is help communities across Africa get more for less. And so everything that we do, which can be a variety of things, whether it's our kind of core B2B e-commerce business, which is helping mom and pop stores across all of these countries get the essential products that they need. We're talking, rice, soap, toilet paper, you name it. They're able to order through our app and get free same day or next day delivery of those products to their store. And that, of course, enables them to continue serving their community. It is also digitizing that whole supply chain, cutting out a number of middlemen, and by doing so, getting those products to those merchants for less. But if you look at what this represents in the African economy overall, this is over $800 billion a year of these basic consumer goods that are being sold through informal retailers. As you said, this is not a charity project. This is not an NGO. This is a huge market that right now is extremely underserved because it's so fragmented. There's been relatively little investment as far as technology and innovation is concerned. In this informal retail space, and that's really what we're here to innovate on. And we're we're definitely on a good track here, but there's a lot more in the market still to do.
Sure. Like post telecoms, it seems to me that's the thing that's really going to transform and make a prosperous, let's call it sub-Saharan Africa. I can speak for East Africa a little bit, but like it's this Harry Potter level magic device that all of a sudden we can communicate and we can coordinate. Too often we just get used to like, this is how it's always been. It's not, many people out here are struggling to get goods and services at good prices. And now in comes this ability to communicate, to coordinate. What's been the hardest part from, or the thing you figured out? Is it the logistics? Is it getting them to to download your app and start ordering in a new way? What was the thing that you moved first that really got it rolling?
I would say, it really takes all the ingredients coming together to really unlock the value here. And I'll just give you, a quick, story as well from our early days, which is actually the initial idea that I went to market with was just a pure software platform. I am a software developer by background, and knew nothing about logistics and warehouses and all that. Certainly not as a dropout from the University of Chicago. So my whole idea was you have these existing consumer goods companies, whether it's the global folks like Unilever, Procter & Gamble, or it's the more local regional companies. They have their goods, they have their presence already in market, they have distributors that they work with, and then you have these small shops. And the main issue, so I thought, was that the distributors, the manufacturers, do not have the demand data, do not have the order signal from these shops. And if you just kind of put a platform there in between them, then voila, magically, that will solve this whole, just in time or stock availability issue. And, the shops will have what they need when they need it for their communities. Turns out, when we went and launched our pilot just with this software only system, that was not enough. What ended up happening is you have these small shops who order in small quantities. The average kiosk shop, let's say that they're selling chewing gum, which, funny enough, was actually one of the first products and partnerships that we had with Wrigley, the chewing gum company based out of Chicago. And if you think about it, the average shop is going to have like one box of chewing gum, sitting right on the counter in the front. And that box, the total value of that one box of chewing gum is like $3. is not that much gum, right? Because people are coming in and buying it for the equivalent 5 cents, whatever a piece, and for that shopkeeper, they have limited working capital, right? So they're not going to buy a whole box of $30 worth of chewing gum. They're going to buy one box per week or whatever the demand cycle is, and then once that box sells out, they're going to order another box for $3. And so the problem is that when you have all of these different shops that are each just stocking $3 up at a time, the distributor who is focused on moving large volumes to, say, wholesalers or the very few kind of larger modern supermarkets that are there, they don't want to drive all the way into this neighborhood just to drop off one little carton of $3 worth of gum at one shop. They want to go to the wholesaler or go to the supermarket and drop off $1,000 worth of gum at a time. And so this was really the issue that then kind of we discovered or uncovered once we got to the point of being in market with this initial kind of software only solution. And so what we realized that there was actually this second layer of problems of not having the right last mile distribution infrastructure to deliver these small amounts at a time. And creating an on-demand service just to deliver $3 worth of gum at a time is not going to work. However, if you can aggregate the other products that the shop needs at the same time, so you realize, okay, today the shop needs one carton of gum, plus they need a box of soap, plus they need a carton of cooking oil, and blah, 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 blah. Suddenly you get to actually, this shop needs $40 of goods, right? Or in our case today, where the average value is actually close to $100 worth of goods, then you can actually make that delivery profitably because $100 delivery, that's in fact equivalent, if not a bit more than what you see with average e-commerce deliveries in the U.S. to consumers, when they order stuff on Amazon and whatnot. Yeah. So these shops are really actually, if you think about it, and to break down the economics to the individual citizen level as well, these shops are where over 90% of these consumer purchases are done, in the vast majority of African economies, and the consumers that are buying at these shops, these are average citizens who have something like $3 a day of disposable income, which is not a lot, but they're buying in the same way that the shops are selling, right? Which is they say in East Africa, the Kidogo economy, right? They're going to the shop and they're saying, okay, I have $1 to buy rice or buy maize flour or whatever kind of staple we're going to cook for dinner tonight. And so here's my $1. Let me scoop out 200 grams of rice or whatever that's going to buy, and then let me take that home, cook that tonight, and then tomorrow I'm going to come back with the $1 that I made, probably working in the informal economy or whatnot, and buy tomorrow night's dinner ration at that point. And so this kind of high frequency but kind of small transaction size is really what the cycles of both individuals as well as these shops go through. And so what you need to have is a infrastructure and an operation that can support that and meet that need. And that didn't exist with the kind of more bulk distribution network that was in place. And so what we realized we had to do is get into this kind of on-demand, small delivery model. And that required us to open up initially what was a two-bedroom apartment on in a neighborhood next to Kibera in Nairobi. And basically what we did was we cleared that out and we just stuffed it full of chewing gum. And that became our first warehouse. These days, you would actually call it more of a dark store, but the concept of a dark store didn't really even exist back in those days. This is like 8 years ago or so that we got going. And what happened was we literally had kind of runners with backpacks who, when an order came in from one of the shops in the surrounding neighborhood, they would take the gum and go deliver that just in time, or in literally less than an hour to the shop once they had ordered it. And we did that to start to kind of demonstrate what the uptake would be, and actually the increased sales of the chewing gum and the few other products that we had to get started with. And very quickly, we realized that, yeah, these economics can work. And especially as we scale it out, we increase the average order size, we get more manufacturers, more products on board. And so it was the combination of having both the technology, both the actual kind of app, the ordering platform, but then also the physical infrastructure and operation that was really required to fully kind of unlock the value of the problem here. I often actually use the metaphor of a multi-lock door for a lot of the opportunities that I think exist in this market, where if you just kind of turn one bolt, that's not enough to really kind of deliver value. You have to kind of unlock all of the different bolts, and then you can open the door and really kind of deliver the value, and achieve the success that you're looking for in a given market. So I think that's a big learning that we definitely took away from that early experience.
Some people may not know, Kibera is the largest slum. It's famously kind of horrific, and I think I don't know, that story you just told, kind of the visualization of beginning in basically one of the most economically oppressed areas in the world, and saying like, all right, just in time, Wrigley's delivery boys, get running, bring your backpacks, let's send these around. And now you've scaled it dramatically. I mean, I don't know what the volumes are, but I was a Peace Corps volunteer in rural Tanzania. I used to go to these little, we call them dukas. And this is the stakeholder that every Peace Corps volunteer is trying to help, that every NGO is trying to help. We've got inflation, we've got high fuel prices. Everybody is hurting in this region, especially those people. And now they get their rice and their oil more efficiently. It's just a thing of beauty and economics at work there. Sort of staying on the economics topic, you know a lot about economics. We align a lot in our viewpoints on how important it is and how much we can utilize it to benefit people. Could you talk a little bit about Silicon Zanzibar and what you're moving forward out there?
Absolutely. So Silicon Zanzibar is a public-private partnership between the government of Zanzibar, which itself is a autonomous region, part of the larger nation of Tanzania, which I think is highly under-focused, as right now the fifth largest country of a population in Africa, and forecasted to be, according to the latest World Bank projections, the second fastest growing country in Africa this year economically, with I think close to a 6% GDP growth rate expected. And so really, I think, booming country, region overall. But Silicon Zanzibar is really about how can Zanzibar, using its strategic autonomy, its ability to pass its own laws, policies, actually, and the fact that Zanzibar itself is an incredibly attractive destination. Talk about tropical island, white sand beaches, all of that, but also kind of immense history, culture, as a kind of trading center for centuries, connecting Africa with the Middle East, South Asia, and beyond, and basically using that opportunity to make Zanzibar the most attractive place to have a tech company in Africa. And how that's being done is, one, through the policies. So this includes incentives such as 10 years corporate tax-free period for companies setting up under the Investment Act, as well as setting up new universities. So just in the past year, We've had the Indian Institute of Technology, widely regarded as one of the top technical institutions in the world, is actually opening its first campus outside of outside of India in Zanzibar, and so that's a huge move to bring human capital development and top tier education in technology to Zanzibar, as well as the African School of Economics, which is a leading world-class economics institution as well, started by Princeton professor Leonard Wachakan to bring top-notch education in economics to the African continent as well. Is also opening its East African campus in Zanzibar, and so that combined with other incentives around kind of easing talent employment and mobility to be able to hire the best technical talent from across Africa and beyond to come be based in Zanzibar. All of these things are coming together to make Zanzibar, as I said, that top place to build a tech company in Africa.
So correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think you threw your weight around a little bit. Being Wasoko, being the CEO of Wasoko, you were based in Kenya. You started flirting with Zanzibar and said, "Let me hire who I want to hire. Let's make this an environment that is going to be a win-win for Zanzibar." Like as you said, you've brought in, or not you, but they're bringing in new new universities and everything. And when you think about, the human potential out in East Africa is incredible. So I'm so thrilled that we're getting education from around the world to raise those standards. But also, just a quick story for me, I got hired when my daughter was being born as an executive here in Kilimanjaro. And at that time, I moved my family here, nervous new parent, and they wouldn't let me work. They kept denying my work permit. And it was just a total shock to me. It's like, what do you want me to do? Like go on welfare? Like I'm married to a Tanzanian. So I love, personally, I've just been watching from the sidelines, like, yes, make it easier for, you to hire a Kenyan, hire an American, hire the right person for the job. And it lifts up everybody in Zanzibar. Free movement of people, free movement of labor, Chicago economics. It's a good thing.
Well,
I'm a big fan of it.
I think, yeah, I understand, migration, can often be a touchy subject, but, the reality is that when you can enable, especially high skilled migration, the results, are, as you said, it's only win-win. And, I think anybody who thinks about this in the context of, sports as a basic example, right? If you're trying to have, the best, soccer football team, in the world, and you want to go compete, in the Premier League, imagine if you're a Premier League club and you are only recruiting British players, how good is your Premier League team going to be? You're going to lose every time.
Part of me thinks it would make soccer more entertaining if you had to do it that way, but fine. Free trade in soccer brings the best to the best managed sports clubs. But I think only English people should play on the English team.
Yeah, well, yeah, sure. We'll see. We'll see how their television ratings go once that policy gets put in place. They'll lose all their sponsorships. But I think joking aside, I think this general point, right, of talent makes other talent better, and that applies whether you're bringing Tanzanians and Kenyans and Nigerians and South Africans or whatever together to build the best tech company possible. Whether you're looking to build out a more diversified industrial economy in manufacturing or other things. The more mobility that you can have of experience, of expertise, the more it helps everyone. It helps obviously those migrants who are looking for opportunities in new countries, international experience, whatnot. But it also helps the local population. The vast majority are of whom are not going to have the same kind of opportunity to go abroad and go to other places. So the next best thing is to bring global talent and world class experience to work alongside them, and that raises their ability to become more competitive in the global market. And that's the thing, you can't expect to have improvements in your economic growth, in your industrialization, in your overall development, without integrating and being a part and competing in the global market. The North Korean path of self-reliance to growth and human prosperity does not work. We've seen that in every case in which it's been tried, and we with terrible and disastrous results for the people who live there. And so if we want to ultimately lift up the well-being and really improve the outcomes on any metric that you look at, whether it's education, it's incomes, it's healthcare, you have to focus on what are the policies and what are the conditions that are going to enable economic growth first.
Let's. I want to talk a little bit about the future of East Africa, how you see things moving forward, right? It's 2024, beginning of the year. What do you anticipate this place looks like in 10 years, 20 years? What are the trends that make you think that?
Great question. I would say I'm extremely bullish on East Africa overall, and that applies starting from, I think, the general macro tailwinds that the African continent has, that I think East Africa in a lot of ways represents the best of. So obviously you have robust population growth, which harnessed properly will provide that demographic dividend to support rising economies and consumption and development of new services and innovation, as young people become part of their economies. But I would also say that geographically, locationally, East Africa is in the right part of the world and the right side of the continent as well, by which I mean oriented on the Indian Ocean, towards India, which is now the world's largest country by population, and itself going through an economic transformation and boom, and having that direct connection across the ocean, only 2.5 hours time zone away, that and even having the historic ties as well, and family relationships with a lot of people of Indian descent, being present in the East Africa region for generations. I think that really helps to drive, once again, that kind of globalization or regional integration between some of the fastest growing economies in the world with the largest populations. And then you combine that with obviously greater proximity to China, Southeast Asia as well, and the resources of growth that you're seeing there. And then also, not to be forgotten, the resources of the Gulf region, which is kind of very quickly becoming the largest investment force in Africa as well. And I think all these kind of really add up to great foundations for economic growth and transformation in the East Africa region over the coming decades.
Last time we had dinner, I think I was expressing some trepidation about raising my family out here, setting up my life. I'm a Colorado, California boy, and it can be tough. Schools are very expensive if you want to go to a good school, or they're really terrible, right? All these things make it difficult. But like as you said, there's a huge swelling wave that's sort of building out here. And if you set up shop at the base, you can be positive it's going to lift. It's going to lift everything up. And I feel like that is just fundamentally true with the growth rates, with the technology that's sort of making access to information and education, knowledge, how to treat people better. All these things are working for the advantage of Africa, as far as I'm concerned. So switching back over to Wasoko, right? You start with Wrigley's gum in a slum, and now you're speaking Arabic, doing a $1 billion merger. I don't know the number or anything. Don't say anything you don't want to say. But like, how did you grow the company? Did you use data in any key ways? You're moving all of this product across the country to these regions. I'd love to learn a little bit about like the metrics, your management style, and how you incorporated the data that you were collecting and how that data could be useful in the future.
Great question. I would say that obviously at the scale that we're at today, which is hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue, and hundreds of thousands of shops now across all the countries that we're now in, and expanding into with our recent announcements. The technology and having the data, the visibility on what's going on is crucial, right? You can't run a business at the scale without it. And what I'd say is even the next step, the next phase, once we got past using an apartment as a warehouse and people on foot delivering the chewing gum, what we realized is that to scale that, you have to have the data, the visibility, the technology systems in place to actually kind of run and optimize the operations. Actually, it was essential because without that, very, very, very quickly, things started to become extremely messy and risky, even just from a cash and kind of asset security perspective, right? So you can imagine, once you get to the point where you're doing, even a couple hundred deliveries a day, and you're doing that across maybe a few dozen vehicles, you can't manually manage all of that movement, all of those goods, all of that payments, without potentially being taken advantage of, and losing a lot in the process. And so we had to, I would say, very kind of early on, invest quite a bit in building out all of the controls and the automated reconciliations and data visibility and whatnot in order to be able to kind of scale the business safely. And that's something where, certainly there was a lot of trial and error, and, there's always, new loopholes and things that come up. But it's something that, I'm quite proud of to this day because, without that, wouldn't be possible to run the business at the scale that we're currently at.
Yeah, that's incredible. All right, well, I have a few questions about you to sort of wrap things up, but is there anything else that we didn't touch on that you want to talk about?
No, let's jump into the final questions.
All right. We're going to get weirdly intimate, so I hope you're feeling comfortable.
I'm ready.
All right. If you had to eat one ethnicity's food only for the rest of your life, which one?
Indian. I'm a vegetarian,
by the way. Easy
so that it's a clear win.
Helps. Yeah,
it's a clear winner. Yeah. India, has the largest proportion and number of vegetarians in the world, and they've done a great job with their food in that regard. So I'm there all the way.
And why are you a vegetarian?
I'm a vegetarian for ethical reasons. So fundamentally, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the philosopher Peter Singer, who is kind of a renowned contemporary utilitarian philosopher who's kind of been highly influential in a lot of fields, including effective altruism, which is something that I identify with. And I think the main principle there is that if you can afford to healthily feed yourself without requiring kind of the harm and pain and suffering of animals in the process, then that is the ethically advisable thing to do.
I don't mean to brag, but I was in Sweden's largest vegan rock band and their only vegan rock band that I know of, called Vinton Vegan. We're on Spotify. Don't check us out. It's not that good of music. But
I'll
yeah,
check you out. I'll check you out for sure.
we have an album called Carnism, which is about a book about how killing animals is wrong. With fish kind of brought me back around. I realized like fish are trying to eat another animal when they bite the hook, and then I eat the fish. Here in Africa, I feel like the rearing of animals isn't quite as bad as in America, but
Not yet.
I'm no longer vegetarian. But I
We'll see.
admire your restraining yourself from eating, you know?
No. It's something that I do miss. Would love to have some good fried chicken one of these days. But hey, I'm excited about the technological progress there as well. We're seeing some of these cultured meats coming onto the markets, and so I'm sure it's only a matter of time before I can get some cultured chicken tenders as well.
Nice. I'll be happy for you that day. If you had to wear do you remember those baggy jeans from the 90s, like Jinkos? Baggy jeans or bell bottoms or skinny jeans? You have 3 options, and you have to pick one of those 3 for the rest of your life.
Rest of my life.
Yeah, man. I'm sorry. Rules.
Yeah. Rules are rules. Wow. So I would say currently my jeans tend to skew onto the skinnier side, but I recognize that long term, that is not the most comfort optimized fit to have. And given we're saying rest of the life, and I'm hoping to still have a good number of decades ahead of me, I would definitely go with something that's a little bit more cross generational, just so that I'm not struggling when I'm 85 to squeeze into that denim. So I would say if I were forced, I would go with the baggy fit. I would I'd take the hit for it now, but I'd thank myself later for sure.
Somehow that was the most probing question I've asked so far. That was really an insight into the mind of Daniel Yu. Thank you for that logical, correct answer. I'm convinced by what you said there. Everybody has something that they probably spend too much time on. I listen to a lot of podcasts. Sometimes I watch a lot of HBO shows. What's sort of like your guilty pleasure? I mean, that you're wasting time on a bit, but it relaxes you.
I would say reading the news, something that I have recognized about myself, and goes beyond the news. But I would say that I am an information addict, and I think it's something where historically I've been able to justify that habit because this is relevant and this is important, things to know about the world. But the reality is that if I actually sit down as I have relatively recently and really kind of reflected on how often does all of this information that I'm bringing in and news, I think is especially suspect among it because more often than not it plays out like a soap opera where you read about this today and then you read about the same thing tomorrow and then you read about it the day after, and rather than actually kind of having a kind of clear narrative and historical value that you can just take in. It is in the way that reading about a historic event that happened 50 years ago. You can just kind of get the relevance and get the valuable insight about what that was about. Most of it is kind of, as I said, this drama or this soap opera about how everything is unfolding as each piece of information becomes aware. And if you actually just cut that out and you don't read the news and you just kind of get the synthesis, at the end of the week or whatnot, then, you could save yourself a huge amount of time. And, the reality is that most of that information and that news, the week by week stuff, is still not really going to be relevant or change your behavior, in any kind of material way anyway. And so, I think even at that level, it's still, kind of superficial. But that is something that I've actually kind of made a change on. So, I used to be kind of an avid daily news reader. And a few months ago, I made a kind of conscious choice to stop reading the daily news. And I now only allow myself on the weekends to indulge in catching up on things.
I so agree with you on that. It used to be the image of like a guy reading a newspaper. Oh, that's good. He'll learn about foreign affairs. He's a well-rounded person. But we are such information addicts with Twitter and screens that for me, yeah, that is the guilty problem. And I've had to just delete my Twitter, delete my Instagram for large periods of time. There was a character on an HBO show recently, and they were trying to demonstrate how he's kind of vapid, shallow finance guy. And he's like, yeah, we don't follow the news. We don't read the news. It's dumb. And I was like, he's a genius. I like this character more. You're trying to make me think he's shallow, but I think he's like, it's like that meme of like the dumb guy is like, the news is stupid. And then like the wise guy, the news is stupid, but everybody in between arguing along the way. So, okay. And do you consume media via Twitter on the weekends, or what do you use?
No, actually, what I spend most of my weekend news digesting is actually The Economist. So I am a
Okay.
subscriber,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I enjoy kind of going through their articles. They tend to be more in depth, strategic analysis on what's happened in the past week, as well as kind of other topics that are more general trends of what's going on. And I think that's while a lot of it, as I said, is still, not necessarily relevant or helpful for me in my day-to-day life, I get my pleasure out of that and feeling like, I'm more worldly. It's that's I'd say the main source that I read. There's a few other resources that I'll catch up on occasionally. Some kind of a little bit more Africa specific. Also, as I said, just to feel informed about what's going on. But the Economist is the main publication for me.
That's your go-to, eh? I'll maybe reread The Economist. At some point, they left me. I used to really trust them, and then at a certain point, I got skeptical of everything, basically. But I'll jump back to them. All right. Final question is kind of a tough one, but I think the word's a polyglot. You speak many languages. Could you rank the languages by your least proficient to your most proficient, and include programming languages?
This is wow. It's been a number of years since I've been allowed to write code, at least for the company. I've had a few personal projects here and there that when I've had some time off, I've gone in and fixed. But honestly, I'd have to say that probably my programming language skills are worse than almost all of my human spoken language skills at this point. So if I had to kind of go through those, um, JavaScript, I was always pretty poor at, and never got the syntax quite right. I was always missing semicolons here and there. So I'd probably say that's the worst. Java itself was never great at that, followed by um, uh, Python, which I was okay at, Ruby, which I was decent at, and then HTML, CSS stuff. I mean, that's pretty straightforward, and I did a lot of the kind of front end design work in my early days of coding too. And then if I got into my human spoken languages, let's see. At this point, as I said, my Arabic is quite rusty, though rapidly improving as I'm getting a lot more exposure there. But I'd probably put that, I guess, at the bottom of my list currently. Maybe Cantonese. Cantonese is also pretty rusty for me. Not using it a whole lot. But then after that, maybe Portuguese, which I'm not using a whole lot these days. I have surprised myself by being able to hold decent conversation when I occasionally run into Lusophone speaking folks. Let's see, after Portuguese, maybe Spanish, which my Spanish is still decent, solid, but don't speak a lot of it, being out here in East Africa. And then beyond that, my French, which I do use with the business on occasion, so it's in a pretty good place. Then my Swahili, which I use fairly often, being in the region, and then Mandarin, which is one of my shared mother tongues. So even though I don't speak it a lot day to day, my ability seems to retain well. And then finally my English, which is doing all right for me currently.
Pretty good at it. Man, Daniel, you're such a mensch. You're such a bro. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. I feel like we have a lot more to talk about. Like, I could just chat with you for hours. So we'll do it again soon, I hope.
Absolutely, man. Looking forward to it.
All right. Have a great evening. Ciao.
See you, man.
Okay. Good.